Mm. Yeah.
Would you mind, just to like really give it presence here, and you can say no. So at any point, I'm going to lead, but you're in control. All right. Um, I've heard you say that you had burnout. Would you be open to sharing your flavor of burnout, sharing the story of your burnout here? Is that
Mm.
something you'd be open to?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm gonna also, I want to say that I'm gonna, and I'd like you to help me here as well. So guide me a little bit. I don't want to tell the story that I normally tell.
Mm.
I'd like it to be more real. So it started with my incredible ambition and my need to create abundance and wealth for myself and my boys and my family. And it also arose from a passion for children in the world to have good quality, high quality education. And that's what drove me a lot as a teacher, as a principal. In everything I was doing, it was very focused on children's rights. And then also, when I was a principal, the rights of my personnel, that they could have work-life balance. I miss, though, a vital, vital part of that. I didn't have work-life balance. In fact, I didn't even know how to have work-life balance. And I was full on in every aspect in my life, as a mother, in creating a home, in being a wife, in being whatever role I had in the educational world, and doing it in a foreign language. I just want to add. So I not only learned a foreign school system, I learned it in another language, and I kept getting better at it and excelling and going up the career ladder. And I made sure my kids had the best education. So if they weren't, if the school was no longer serving them, I was strong enough to move them. If my kids ever were bullied at school, I stepped in and I made sure the school sorted it out. It was solved within 24 hours. And, I was a powerhouse. I never tolerated bullying in my own schools as well. It was sort of this sense of love and passion to create a world where people really can excel. And I saw that as my leadership, whether I was standing in a classroom as a teacher, whether I was standing there as a careers advisor or a school administrator or a principal, or as a mother at home. My leadership role has always been to create a environment where people can thrive, where they can be the best possible person they can be. And as I say, the talking about this now, and I'm really digging deep to actually bring out a completely different way of talking about this. This is new. I've never said this before in this comparison. It's that leadership is still something, that type of leadership is still important to me. But it was this one part of the jigsaw, to be that model, to live like that, the live as you preach type of thing. I was busy creating for everybody else at the same time as I was emptying myself, continually emptying myself. And it probably, I probably could have kept going for a lot longer. I may never have even burnt out if I had not made a decision to get divorced, to split up from my husband, because I felt that the relationship we were in, even though we still cared very much about one another, no longer was conducive to the family. We were unhappy when we were living together. It was better that we were friends and didn't live together. And my sons were suffering. And when my sons suffer, I don't tolerate it. And so I would just like to say that, you know, it was the easiest, most amicable divorce probably in the whole world. And we cared very much about one another, even afterwards. And that was the first thing. But by doing that, I also know that I felt that I had failed. And I think, looking back now, you know, whether it was depression from a clinical point of view, but I was definitely sad, grieving around the end of that marriage that had been there for 10 years. And I didn't deal with that. I didn't look at that. And then on top of that, I moved into a new relationship that wasn't really serving me. And at the same time as I then decided that my son needed to move from the place that we were living on. We were living on an island in the middle of the Baltic, and I wanted to move him to Stockholm. So it wasn't just like a move down the road. It's a big move. And I was also doing vocational training at the time at university level. So I was studying to be a qualified principal at the same time as I was doing a full-time or more than full-time principal's job, because that's what it is. It's a bit of a kamikaze kind of job. And so my plate was already full, just studying and doing the full-time job. And then I added the move on top of it, which required me to find another job to find schools for my kids, and to sell my house, pack it up, sell it, and move into a little apartment in Stockholm, because that was what I could afford. So I had to also scale down, get rid of a lot of stuff. So the whole of that I was doing in 2013, 2012. It doesn't really matter. It was around that time. And there was this year, and the house looked like it was going to sell. Then it fell through, and I ended up asking the person that I was together with whether we could actually move in together with him in his small apartment, I and my son, so that at least my eldest son could start the school. It was like starting college in the USA or upper secondary school in England. It was that sort of level. He was moving, and it was important for him. The reason I was doing it is because he's incredibly intelligent, and I knew, and the school even said to me, please move him to a place. He is not going to get the intellectual stimulus here on this island. He needs to be in another environment. And that was the baseline for doing what I was doing. It was an awful time for me, for my career. It was an awful time to be doing it for my younger son from his schooling point of view, but I still did it. And I made it work. I found solutions even when things didn't really fall into place. I remember my eldest son looking at me at one point, and he went, Mum, are we going to make this? Are we really going to move to Stockholm? It was so important to him. And I just looked at him and I went, yeah, we're doing it. And I made it happen. I moved mountains and I made it happen. And I took a job that was too big for me, but it was like, it's a job, we're doing it. I'm going to do this. It was actually too big for me. And I knew it. Yeah, it was a feeling even at the interview. It was like, and I said yes, just to get everything in place so that I could make this work. And then I did the job. We lived in this tiny apartment, and at the same time I started continued to look for apartments up in Stockholm. So we weren't even living in our own space. We were cramped into a little apartment with all of our stuff packed up in storage, just the basics with us. So we were camping basically for a number of months. And at the same time as, you know, the job was too much for me. well, it became even more too much for me, because I, as a principal, I had lots of vice principals, and within 2 months, they'd all disappeared. One of them had another job, and 2 of them got ill. And suddenly, and then even my assistant got ill, or actually, she was already ill. I sent her away and to go and get sorted out. That was, again, it's like, no, I'll cope. And of course I didn't cope, because basically I had no support system. I had nobody there. And suddenly I was basically doing the job of 5 people in a job that was already too big for me, in a position that was already stretching me way beyond my competency. But it was like, I'm doing this because this is going to work. And then we bought a house together. This person I was together with, and I'm going to say I am together with. We even got married after many years of living together. But at the time, we kind of did it as a financial thing, because we worked out that both of us actually paying for apartments, it would be cheaper if actually we bought a house together. So we did. And saying, if it doesn't work out, we'll sell it again and make money in a few years' time, when our kids have sort of moved out. Actually, by the time they were moving out, we got married. We're still together. But it wasn't a good time for either of us. He was also struggling, had also his problems. So we spent the first few years wondering whether we should even be together. It was at that level. And by the time then I got to this, within a couple of months of being in this job, I wanted to leave. I remember standing there in my office on a Friday. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I shut the door and I had tears running down my face. And I'm like, I want to get out of here. And it's like, but I can't. I've got to do this. And so I kept going as my health got worse and worse. And I started feeling that sometimes I was dizzy when I was getting up out of a chair. I had trouble concentrating. I was having great trouble sleeping, and the immense pressure I was under all the time. And I just kept going. I kept going and I kept going, and I created an amazing Christmas for us. And then the new year came, and then I took myself off to Dubai for five days, because I was going to then relax. Could I relax for 5 minutes? No. I was so overstretched, that there was no way that was going to happen. I came back and I realized that my health was so bad that things were not working. My mental, things were not working anymore. And I knew that if I didn't stop now, I might not be able to get out of bed one morning. I'd gone too far. So I'm like, I think I'm burning out. And so I went to the doctor, and sure enough, that was what they diagnosed. And then, of course, then I was off sick. And within a month, my employer then said to me, we don't want you, we're kicking you out. Which in some countries, you can do that. Actually, here in Sweden, it's very difficult to do that, to kick somebody out when they're on sick leave. So I fought tooth and nail to not let them do that until the November of that year. So that in April they did that, and then in the November I made the decision to leave and organized a payoff and sort of settlement thing, and I left. But I left on my terms, and I left when I was ready, because I no longer wanted to have the "you are on sick leave" label on me anymore. I didn't want that. I felt that wasn't serving me anymore, and I needed to step out of that with all of the consequences that had. And I thought, I'm not going to get better playing that I am sick game. I need to step out and go, I'm something else game, giving myself another identity and moving out of that. So that was perhaps the start of the journey to recovery when I took over that.
So I'm going to pause before we get to the journey of recovery, right? How are you feeling inside right now?
It's the World Joy Movement. Yeah.
What was your greatest insight from this conversation? And if you want to come and be a part of a conversation like this live, it's really simple. just go to beworldjoy.com and come introduce yourself and let's take the conversation to the next level because you're there now.
All right, let's play.